I put on Twitter the other day, like,
I
hey, give
saw
me your,
that, yeah.
and I had one of the guys that listens to our show all the time, one of Katie's coaches, gave me like 10 capsules. He goes, take this and see if it helps
Yeah.
with your inflammation. Like, when you were doing your deal, did you get the whole pitch on the whole, like,
I've done
science of it and
Yeah.
stuff? Now, is it a kind of a thing where you have to, like, there's a certain purity to it, and some brands are
Yes.
junk, and
The
some
best,
brands
has a little THC in it, but not enough to
screw you up. Yeah.
make you know any different.
Yeah.
That's what it works most effective. I think it's 3%.
So you have
You wouldn't fail a drug test.
Yeah,
with it.
that's your. I assume that's what you're going with. Or?
Well, I'm going with the best, the strongest stuff possible without getting. I'll
Have you used it? Like,
yeah, I used a cream now that my producer's wife made for me. She makes it in California. On my
you
back
put it
nip.
on the like. If you
Yeah,
have a
but I
knee
think
issue?
the best are the pills or the dropper.
Okay.
But I'm getting some samples and
Okay.
I'll bring it up. We can start talking about maybe next week.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Buckeyes blow it, and
I watched that whole thing. They're not
was-
very good. They're not good. I don't
No,
understand.
they're
why
not.
you think-
I don't know where the first part of the year came from. They're not. I mean, they're struggling in a
Well, how
thousand.
many Weston had last night? Like 2 points?
Two.
You're not going to win with him scoring 2
No,
points.
they're not. You're right. Okay, here we go.
That car kid's tough, man.
Against us, he is. I'll give you some numbers from Matt McCoy on that.
We had 19. He's averaging 19 the last 7 games.
Yeah, but he's averaging 15 against everybody else and 28 against Ohio State. All right, here we go. Yeah, it's a hard case to make. And I should have made a new open. I didn't. No, you're not listening to the same podcast you listened to on Wednesday. This is new. Speaking of hard cases to make, it's hard case to make how our basketball team got to number 2 in the country. Given what we watched last night against Minnesota, Mr. Spielman. Good morning. It's bright and early, man. We are we are up and at 'em at 6:30 in the a.m. here on a rainy day. Roads okay? Everything good?
Yeah, I'm just glad I wasn't. The Ohio State game started at 6:30 last night.
Yeah.
Tim Brando,
Timmy
the
B.
veteran. The
Timmy
veteran
B.
came in with
come on now. You buried the lead. Jimmy Jackson was
Yeah,
on
of
the
course.
color
Yes.
commentary.
I know. I was just getting ready to say Jimmy was also on the call.
No,
and-
Jimmy's never second to Timmy B. Jimmy's never second to anybody.
Very frustrating. I thought for sure they were going to win, and the Carr kid just at the end for Minnesota.
Marcus Carr.
And a good point guard, right? Takes control of the game.
Drives, penetrates, kicks, hits big shots.
Things you like to see. Out
He
of the boy.
is a superhero against Ohio State. I had the pleasure last night of sitting next to our former colleague Matt McCoy at the game.
At the
Matt-
Zone. The game was another life of yours.
Yeah.
This was called the Zone that we worked at. My name is Chris Spielman, by the way.
What did I say?
I thought you were saying another colleague I worked with at the game. There's radio stations called The Game.
The Game, yeah. No.
Is that your Cleveland station, The
no,
Game?
No. It was, what was it? ESPN 850 to begin. ESPN Cleveland. That's what they went by.
All right. And I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. So anyway, Matt McCoy, our former colleague at the Zone, was there last night, and Matt was sitting next to me, and Matt with a tweet this morning about Marcus Carr. He shoots 63% against Ohio State, 35% against everyone else. He hits 54% of his threes against Ohio State, 31% against everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
He's averaging 28 against the Buckeyes, 15 against everyone else. He's almost twice the player against the Buckeyes that he is against everyone else.
It's just that's a team he feels confident to play against. Him. I mean, I thought the effort was really good. I thought it was. I mean, they played hard, and Young played well, and other guys did a pretty good job. But when Caleb Wesson, who you claim as the best player on the team. I haven't seen it yet this year, but he might be. I mean, he had some nice passes and some good assists, which are obviously important.
Mm-hmm.
But if he's only scoring 2 points and not being a presence inside or even a threat inside to score points, it's going to be tough for them to win. And
1 for 10 for Caleb Weston.
They're really struggling.
0 for 3 from three-point range, including one with about 16 seconds to go that was wide open on the right wing. And Chris Holtman said he liked the look. He didn't make it. And Marcus Carr came down. Minnesota, look, Richard Pitino, smart decision not to call a timeout, and here's why it's smart, because Chris Holtman had taken Luther Muhammad and Kyle Young out of the game at the timeout to sub offense for defense. So Kyle Young, who led the Buckeyes in scoring with 14, was not in there. And then when Marcus Carr got the rebound, he never passed it.
No,
he just held on to it and went to the other end, and he's like, oh, there's DJ Carton. I like being guarded by DJ Carton a lot more than I like being guarded by Luther Muhammad.
Right.
Let me give a little shimmy shoulder shake here to the left.
It's a beautiful little move, wasn't it?
DJ Carton flying
yeah,
like a Roman soldier in the Garden of Gethsemane.
Well,
I mean, it was like, what? And he's just wide open for a look. CJ Walker flew at him, but too late.
Yeah.
Drano, 3 seconds left, game over.
And credit, Luther Muhammad's certainly struggling offensively, but defensively, he's their best defensive player. I think he is.
Yeah, that's the problem, is they got a lot of guys who are like half reliable at this point in time.
Reliable, I would say, that are half skilled. Like Luther struggles offensively, he's great defensively, right?
Yeah.
Weston can pass the ball, but he's not scoring. CJ Walker, you don't know what you're going to get. Inconsistent would be, I think, a better word.
Yeah, Dwayne Washington can hit the occasion, can hit some shots, but he can turn it over like in a mind-numbing way. DJ Carton, same thing. Can't trust him really with the ball. So a kid who we thought was going to be their point guard comes in, and now he has to play shooting guard. Then you're playing small all the time because you got CJ Walker, Dwayne Washington, and DJ Carton on the floor at the same time.
Your biggest offensive threats right now.
Yeah,
and you're right, Bruce. It is what it is, and like I said, I think they're an NIT team.
Right now.
Well, I mean,
they're like 12th in the Big Ten. I mean, maybe even worse than that.
No, they got a chance to get off of it here against Northwestern on Saturday or Sunday.
I said in all week in my stories on SI.com that they were 2-5 in the Big Ten, but they've got Minnesota at home, at Northwestern, and Indiana at home. Look, you got to protect home court in the Big Ten. Everybody's winning at home in the Big Ten. Everybody. Yeah. So you got a chance to get to 500 in the Big Ten, and then, okay, you go to Michigan, maybe you win that one. Michigan's not a great team this year. And instead, now they're 2-6. I don't count anything, any win for this team, automatic. Northwestern's giving people trouble at home. And
they see a wounded Ohio State team, right? So Ohio State's thinking, okay, we got Northwestern to get healthy. Well, guess what Northwestern's saying? Okay, well, good. We got a great opportunity in home because we got Ohio State coming in. It's not like we have Michigan State coming in.
That's like you used to say when the Browns were talking about, we're going to Arizona. Yeah, Arizona can't wait for you to get there either. And they showed why.
Isn't that the mindset, though?
Yes, of course. So. I mean, here's Chris Holtman, and just listen to what he says about his basketball team's capabilities. This is a searing assessment for a team that was at one point in the season ranked number 2 in the country.
Is that you typing in the background?
Yeah. Not good enough in enough areas to win in this league. I know it's true.
Yeah.
It's just like, whoa. That's startling of a team that housed Villanova in North Carolina and beat Kentucky. And Carolina's not what Carolina's always been, but you know what? Ohio State's not what it was 5 weeks ago.
No.
It's like, phew.
So it's his job to turn it around. He gets paid a lot of money to turn it around. And there's got to be accountability. And I get coaches frustration, but he understands what the standard is and what the stakes are, and he's got to get it going. I mean, it's up to him. And you get 1 year like this. Now, there's plenty of time to turn around, and we know, of course, the beautiful thing about basketball, there's 3 different seasons, right? There's a regular season, there's a conference tournament, and although it's unlikely, and I hope I'm wrong, I very well could be wrong, there's an NCAA tournament. But I don't.
They got work to do.
I mean,
look, if they get to around 500 in the Big Ten, they're going to get in. It's the deepest basketball league in the country. Conference. So if they can get to 9 and 11 in the conference, maybe even 8 and 12 looks bad, but they got a strong non-conference thing. They'd probably get in.
Wouldn't you think they'd have to go a little bit in the tournament? What if they got bumped in the first round of the
tournament? No, it wouldn't be good. I wouldn't
because
wouldn't advise
you're looking
that.
at it, they might. I mean,
I wouldn't advise that.
No. Hey, it's okay, boys. You can lay down on the tournament.
No. I keep waiting for them to get hot.
Yeah.
And now it's like, here you can't. I mean, let's just say if you win the Wisconsin game and the Minnesota game at home, you're 4-4 in the Big Ten, and you're like, okay. Boy, we'd like to be better, but we're 4-4 and we're in the same boat as everybody. We're not winning on the road. All right, everybody's not. Michigan State last night didn't win on the road at Indiana. It happens. Don't even bring up.
They're back. The tradition, the time-honored code, the candy stripes. What do you? I mean, they're back.
If they sweep Ohio State this year, It's just a basketball game, Bruce. Let it go.
People are out just to torture you.
So my buddy the other day, he's in Vegas, and he doesn't like going to Vegas. Good Christian guy, and me and another buddy from church are trying to lift him up and text him, and my one friend sends a link to a thing you can do in Vegas where you go and you run a tank, a military tank. You get to drive the tank, and you get to drive it over a car, crush a car.
You'd love to do that, wouldn't you?
And he said, would you like to do that? And I said, only if the car was cream and crimson and had IU painted on it. So, yeah. So,
all right.
We'll see. But, it's not good. Not good. The highlight of last night's affair was halftime. Ryan Day and many of the Ohio State football Buckeyes at midcourt. Here's Ryan Day talking about the Fiesta Bowl. Next year they can come back even stronger.
What he said it didn't sit well.
Didn't sit well.
It's never going to sit well.
Didn't sit well. He didn't say that. He didn't say he didn't say the urban.
This will never happen again.
I'm not used to this. Not going to get used to this. Never happen again.
There wasn't anybody getting walking papers off the air before they got off the airplane.
Nobody
by
the
way,
here's your bonus, and here's the number for 2 men in a truck.
You got to give it to Urban though, man. I mean, seriously, dude.
There's nothing wrong with that, man. There's nothing wrong with that. Got a job to do, you better do it. So yeah, that's I like that. I think thing about Ryan, I've been pretty impressed with his leadership and his awareness of what his team needs. I don't think it's a thing where they're going to wallow in their failure. I think it's a thing where they're going to use it to drive them. And hey, they got a good team coming back, man. I mean, they're my questions are the secondary, just because 3 new guys and changing coordinator. You can't ever ignore that. I don't know that it's a problem, but you just can't ignore it. If you're looking like what could go wrong, well, changing coordinator.
It's plug and play.
I would think.
Yeah.
Particularly in the league they're in. It's not like they're in the Big Ten basketball where everybody's good.
But
their chief rival's a train wreck.
Here's the thing. It's the difference in mentality. And I was watching the teams last night, and I agree with Coach Holtman that the focus was there. I mean, I thought everybody was given everything they have, right? But the difference in mentality between the football team and the basketball team, and this night just because of the nature of the sport, right? when Ohio State football plays, there is such a sense of urgency, and there's such a high level of performance that we see week in and week out. And the reason is, and again, I think it's also the nature of the sport. If you're not, you're out, because you have another guy that's coming in that's ready to play.
Yep.
And there's no threat, I guess, to anybody on that floor. Okay, I'm going to suspend Dwayne Washington and Luther Muhammad, and there was no threat for those guys to be replaced long term.
No.
I mean, so there's almost like, you talked about how some people would say that Urban operated with a culture of fear. I call that a culture of healthy competition.
Yeah, a culture of accountability.
Yeah. And if you're not playing, you're done.
Well, and, it extended to the coaches, too. Ed Warren or Tim Beck, not getting the job done, bye-bye.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, but, the other thing with that is, when you come to Ohio State, whether it's you're working for Ryan Day or Urban Meyer, or you're playing for whatever coaches, Bill Davis you can throw into that list, too, by the way.
Yep.
I think for me, you understand what you're coming into, and you know the rules that you sign up to play by, and they are coached hard. They're relentless in the competition that they create throughout that building. And Urban was talking about one of his big thing was creating competition 24/7, 365 days a year. I don't know if that's the case in basketball, and I don't know if you can do that in basketball because you just don't have enough guys. But there's kind of a little bit of a tease. I know you want to get to the coaching thing here.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
Yeah, I just wanted to that's how, at that level, how coaching is one philosophy, I guess, of coaching that has proven to work.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You need more players in football because you got more guys out there. You got more scholarships, but it does seem football's plug and play, the expectations of football. That's why the Fiesta Bowl was so searing. It's like, wait a minute, Ohio State doesn't lose games like that.
Yeah.
Ohio State doesn't go 0-3 in a red zone. Ohio State doesn't. Ohio State, a lot of people, Ohio State doesn't get bad calls, the worst call they've ever gotten. Yeah, true. But maybe the reason you don't get bad calls is because you're not in a position where a bad call can beat you very often.
That's true.
You're knocking it into the red zone. You're not roughing the punter. You're not targeting.
Or you're not giving up a long drive.
Yeah. You're not giving up a 4-play, 96-yard drive. I mean, that's part of it, too, is Ohio State isn't very often in a position where if they get a bad call, it means the difference between victory and defeat.
So, although Ohio State had such a great year, Big Ten champions, a lot of things accomplished, I can almost guarantee you that every player and every coach in that building feels like it was a disappointment because they knew they were a legitimate national champion contender. Legitimate. They knew how good they were.
Yeah. So the last time I felt like that about basketball was when they had Sullinger, Buford, Diebler, and they lost to Kentucky. And you're like, dag, we get by that one. We're good enough to win it all. Yeah, they were good enough to win it all. That year in basketball, and definitely this year in football. Although LSU would have been a tall mountain to climb, but I would like to have seen how it would have transpired.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would have been a much better game than it was against Clemson. And I don't think, Joe would have had as many opportunities to make as many big plays as Joe was able to make against Clemson, simply because of the type of defense that Clemson was playing. They did the old, our man's going to be better than your man, and Joe starts dropping dimes in the bucket. I think Jeff Hafley and crew, former defense coordinator, now head coach at Boston College, I think they would have made him gone the long way.
Yes.
And forced them to make plays and not try to keep everything in front of you, as opposed to playing press man coverage all the time and number one takes off down the field and just throw it up there, Joe. And Joe would have had more yards and more touchdowns if LSU receivers didn't drop the ball.
Yeah. He's something else, man. Draft him, Bengals. Draft him. Don't even think about it.
You asked, it's interesting, I see on your little rundown there, which OSU player is going to be the NFL best player?
Best player in the NFL out of this
coming
class.
Up.
KJ Hill would not have been on our list until his week at the Senior Bowl, where yesterday he was voted best wide receiver on the North by the DBs he's been going against in practice. He's been lighting it up.
That's a credit to KJ, and Another guy that shined down at the Senior Bowl, I believe last year, was Terry McLaurin.
Yes.
And KJ has been reliable. He's smart. He's been well coached at his whole career at Ohio State. And the most impressive thing, if anybody follows Twitter or follows these type of things for a living like Bruce and I do, you can see the one-handed catches that he's making and the ability to run routes. And he's such a tough cover. And KJ Hill is the epitome of what they call a slot receiver. A very difficult matchup for safeties and linebackers, and we see everybody, including in college, take advantage of that position. So those guys are coveted. They're hard to find. And the good thing is usually they don't cost you a lot of money. They're not a Julio Jones or an Odell Beckham or Landry or that type of guy.
He's probably going to be there.
It's a specialized position.
He's probably going to be there in the third round. Like Terry McLaurin was there in the third round. Like Mike Thomas was there in the second round. And this just hit me, like some of the hidden potential of Ohio State football players as NFL players, because there's so much depth. I mean, you got to share time at wide receiver. I can't tell you with certainty that Austin Mack won't be a star in the NFL because he had to share so much time here. KJ Hill had to share so much time here. Did anybody think Anybody think Mike Thomas would catch more passes than anybody in NFL? Why? Because he's got Evan Spencer and he's got this guy, and he's got that guy, and they're all good enough to play, and so you play them, and they don't get the run that they get. I mean, if one of those guys was at Wisconsin, they'd be throwing it to him all the time.
Yeah. I never thought, I was completely wrong on Mike Thomas. I thought he'd be a good, solid, dependable wide receiver in the National Football League. I didn't know he would turn into a top 3 guy. I was completely wrong on Mike Thomas, and good for him. I'm glad when I'm wrong like that, I'm happy I'm wrong because I want everybody to succeed. I want everybody to have great success. And it's interesting, I had a chance to really watch Terry McLaurin because I did the Redskins at the end of the year because we got stuck in that NFC East because of the playoff battle for the Eagles and how bad it was, or how the teams were fighting down there till the end. And I watched Terry McLaurin in practice, and Bruce, his practice habits are off the charts. And Terry McLaurin's success only helps KJ Hill.
Yeah.
It only helps KJ Hill. And I don't know KJ, but I'm assuming he's like everybody else. Everything I hear about him is that he's a great kid and
good, strong, solid guy. Yeah, absolutely.
And so I'm really happy for him and that he's had a strong Senior Bowl, and good for KJ because he solidified his opportunity for a future in the NFL by his performance down at the Senior Bowl.
Well, there's 31 teams asking themselves now, why don't we pick Mike Thomas? The Browns picked Corey Coleman 15th that year. First wide receiver off the board.
Out of Baylor.
Mike Thomas went in the second round to the Saints. I think he was the 5th or 6th wide receiver taken. So, we missed on that. Whoa, wait a second now. There's Terry McLaurin. How did we miss on him? At that point in time, you start to go, maybe there's a little something about these Ohio State wide receivers and the way they're coached and the way they adapt and the way they're ready for the NFL that we better pay attention to. So I think it definitely helps KJ Hill and Austin
other thing
and Victor.
You know the other thing they don't have? That a lot of these guys have just by nature, again, I'm going back to the nature of the sport or the nature of the position, is what's the most diva-like position in football?
Wide receiver.
We see it's wide receiver,
yes,
right?
It is.
Well, these guys, and this is a credit to this current crop, right? It's a credit to Brian Hartline, to Zach Smith, to Urban Meyer, to Tom Herman, to anybody else that's had
Kevin
Wilson. That's had an impact on these guys and coaching them. They are team guys, all of them. And it just, to me, it's such a rare group that this Ohio State wide receiver combination has been. The very first game, I don't know if you remember this tweet. I sent out a tweet after the very first game, and I said it's almost unfair at the wide receivers against college defensive backs with the amount of depth and talent that they have at this position. And I'm just excited for these guys. This is the most miserable time of year for me. First of all, it's the championship game. Championship Sunday was last Sunday, and I'm just angry and ticked off and just green with envy, which maybe spiritually I can address. Then it's the Super Bowl. Then that's even worse. I hate it. I hate everything about it. I hate watching it. I hate the party. I hate the food.
Because
I didn't play in it. And I hate it. And I can't let it go. It's a sickness. It's an obsession. It's something that I watch ID Discovery a lot. You know, they have all these names like Evil Beside Me or something, or Evil Lives Inside. That's it. It's just so depressing for me. But what I do get excited about is the combine and is the draft, because I know that these guys are going to have a chance that I had, and that they're a chance to live a dream. So I know how excited these guys are, and I'm just as excited for them. And I love it when Ohio State guys are able to do things down at the Senior Bowl, and it's a credit to everybody involved, including the coaches and the head coach and the whole system that they have going on over there in Buckeye Land.
I wanted to ask you about with the retirement of Eli Manning today.
Yes.
Here's an interesting stat. Peyton and Eli Manning are the only quarterbacks drafted number 1 since 1990 to win a Super Bowl.
Wow.
A lot of quarterbacks taken at the top. A lot of guys who are
number 1 overall.
KMS, number 1 overall. Yes. Only 4 quarterbacks taken since 1980 have won Super Bowls. That is 40 years. 4 in 40 years. Do the math. 1 a decade.
Right.
So the other 2 are John Elway and Troy Aikman. I know you played against Troy. Did you play against Elway?
I might have. I think one time I played against him. Yeah. 1 or 2 times I might have played against him. Yeah, because Elway, I think, left in 97.
Yeah, all of them, all 4 of those guys won 2 or more. Well, Aikman won 3. I think Elway won 2.
I mean, the percentage.
Both Mannings won 2.
Here's the dilemma, right? The percentages say you don't need to take one number 1 overall, but you also know that you need one to give yourself any chance.
More than you need anything else.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it just goes to show you the difficulty of the position and the difficulty in evaluating the transition from a college quarterback to an NFL quarterback. I mean, it's the most difficult thing to do. And you like to study, or it would be interesting to see of all the first round draft picks, you know, what the regular season record is. Another interesting thing in regards to Eli Manning, and I believe I said it on our podcast, Eli Manning's overall record, Bruce, is 117-117. Did you know that?
I did. You said that on the other. You said that the other day, and I listened closely to everything you said.
Not really, but anyway. He's 2 Super Bowls, and in a Super Bowl, both times he was named MVP.
Both times he beat Tom Brady.
Everybody wants to know the definition of Eli Manning. To me, is yes, he was a regular season mediocre quarterback. That's he is who his record says he is.
Yep.
But when he got his opportunity, the definition of Eli Manning, at the very biggest game, he played the biggest he's ever played in his career. And that's why I think Eli Manning has a successful career. I think numbers might match up. I do think he'll be a Hall of Famer, in my opinion. And the one thing I always look at, though, man, when the game is the biggest, who's going to rise and who's going to shrink? And both times when Eli Manning got the opportunity, he rose.
You know, the throw to David Tyree gets a ton of run. It's kind of the signature play of Eli Manning's
career. The other
career.
throw was better.
I was just going to say that.
Oh.
The throw to Manningham in the next Super Bowl, the next one that he won.
One on the sidelines.
What a throw that was. I mean, you talk about dropping it in the bucket.
Yeah, I've got about 10 throws that I have in my computer-like brain that are just mind-boggling, and that was certainly one of them. And that's why the position, I have greater respect as an analyst for the position of quarterback than I did as a player. Isn't that crazy? Because I actually sit there and, as a player, I studied the whole offense. Well, now I have more time. I look at the quarterback and I see some of the throws that these guys make or where they put the football. And a throw that Carson Wentz made this year against the Redskins was off the chart. I couldn't even believe it when I saw it. How can somebody on the run from 25 yards away throw it to a spot in the back corner of the end zone through a maze of hands and outstretched hands, and a guy catch the ball. That's why I always say the most important physical attribute I love is accuracy.
Accuracy. Yeah.
I remember in a Monday night game when playing with against Aikman, and a guy named Jay Novacek, and my job was to cover Novacek, who was a very difficult cover because he just was a good route runner and he had all this shake. 3 times during that game, 3 times the ball went off of my fingertips right into the waiting hands of Jay Novacek. And 3 times the ball was caught. And that's when I said to myself, how can a guy do this every single time and be this good to understand where to put that ball? It's just amazing to me, the skill level and talent of good quarterbacks. That's why I understand the stats that you gave, but I also understand when I have a guy that's throwing the ball like Joe Burrow is and how much he's improved his accuracy from his redshirt junior year to his redshirt senior year, you got to take him. You can't pass up on him. There's no way you pass up on him if you're the Bengals.
There is one quarterback in the Pro Football Hall of Fame who is sub 500 for his career.
Dan Marino.
No, sir.
Okay, wait. What decade?
60s and 70s. Mostly 70s.
Oh boy, I should know this. Don't tell me. I'm going to think about it.
Okay.
All right.
I can give you a hint
that
might give it to you. He's probably in off one game in his career.
60s?
It's one of the games in the pantheon of the NFL. If you're going to list the top 5 most significant games in NFL history.
I, of course, know what pantheon means, but I'm sure there's a lot of listeners out there that have no idea what pantheon.
You know, like the Hall of Fame. It's just another name for like the Hall of Fame. The pantheon of NFL games. Top 5 games in NFL.
Uber Alles.
Uber Alles. Football Uber Alles. Shout out to our guy, Mark Carpenter. I don't know if Mark even listens. Back from the fan days, the old football Uber Alles days. Andy Geiger came up with that.
Who is it? Just tell me who it is.
White shoes. I'll give you white shoes. One more hint.
Namath?
Joe Namath. Under 500 for his career.
Oh, that's because of the
Super Bowl against the Colts.
Yeah.
The supposed guarantee. More interceptions than touchdowns in his career.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the
But he's a figure in NFL history where you go, a transformative figure in that AFL-NFL merger. And if you're too young to remember Joe Namath and all that, go back and read about him because he was a transformative guy.
There's a great show on A&E, and I just am in the middle of this series called Mad Men.
Mm-hmm.
Mad Men is about Madison Avenue and advertising agencies. And there's a portion within that series about how they're trying to get Joe Namath to be like a spokesperson.
Mm-hmm.